Dark spot. And welcome to FYI. Chirita.
Good morning, guys. Welcome to For Your Information. I am Director of Finance, joined by Sherrod Duncan, and today is the 24th of February.
Already, wow, already.
We have a lot going on, actually, a lot going on right now, not only in Guyana, but around the world. And we have so much that we have to be discussing. And we were up very early this morning following international news. I know a lot of persons have been following.
Lots happening on the international scene, which we're going to tell you about in just a little bit. But good to see lots of the guys already here and joining us. Folks like Vashti Magnard, always here.
Siobhan McDonough.
As well. Guys, let us know if you're receiving us loud and clear. Please let us know if you're receiving us loud and clear. You're seeing us well and so forth. Sometimes it looks one way on our end, but then you receive us differently. We want to know that very, very early. Beatrice Selby is here too. Beatrice.
Let's say if you're Lewis, oh my God, I'm early.
Yeah. Good to see you guys. And some of you would have recovered or recovering after the MASH celebrations, like Jurita.
I did no such thing.
You didn't celebrate.
I was actually working on yesterday.
Quiet celebration.
Actually, we did the
we were on yesterday morning.
Then yesterday midday we did the podcast.
And then we took a rest.
Then you took a rest. Then I had another meeting that lasted on into the night with a youth group. So yeah.
Well, you know, folks. Lativi and Lennox Anderson. You know, the good book says, no rest for the wicked. That's what it says.
You never know.
So Chica was working all day yesterday.
I don't consider myself wicked.
Shade. I see we got William Kosh's here with us as well. And folks like lovely, beautiful folks like Karen McFoy here with us too, guys. We're really, really happy to see all of you. Really, really happy to have you guys.
Isabella Butters, good morning to you, Isabella, and Gavin Liverpool. Thank you for that feedback, Gavin. Gavin said he's hearing us loud and clear.
Fantastic. We love that.
Karen Gordon, good morning to you, Karen. And Dawn Cook. Hey, Dawn.
What's cooking, Dawn? What's cooking?
Dawn has been a member of the FYI, the In the Ring, the Below the Belt.
Yes,
you know?
We got those faithful followers, those faithful fans who have become family now. Y'all, it's family. Once you all know that. Family. And again, really happy to have you guys here. Pull up your cup of tea, your black tea, your sweet sage, your sweet broom, whatever you're having this morning. With us, we got a couple of issues we want to share with you guys. And we're so glad that, you know, all of you are here with us. We could not ask for a better bunch of people to be with.
Most definitely. And like we always ask, persons out there, just tell us where you're joining from and continue to share the feed so that persons could be joining us from throughout the world. This morning, you know, is there anyone joining us from Europe? I'm pretty interested if
Wonder what's happening in Europe there.
Anyone joining from Europe this
Probably got to
morning.
bring you guys in live. And just as an FYI, Amanda is going to be joining us, our co-host. She's going to be joining us very, very shortly. So we've reserved the seat for Amanda. We reserved it for you guys as well. We're really happy to have folks like Erwin Don Cook here and Oswin Love. When you have a surname like Love, you got to be really good, you know. You got to live up to that.
I don't want to have that surname.
You got to live up to that.
I would be a hypocrite.
Erwin Love. I see Chisel Chipper, 48 is with us. 68 rather. Chisel Chipper 68. What kind of name is that? What kind of social media name is that? Chisel Chipper. 68.
That probably translates into an email address or something.
Perhaps. We also have Twitter. We got Rowena Williams here with us as well. Idol Rodney. We got Jennifer Argyle. Lovely folks like Alex Shauna Edwards.
I see is it Graceline Hose joining from France, if I got the name correct. Graceline joining from France.
Gabrielle Johnson. Am I calling it right? Gabrielle Johnson's watching from Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah. Wow, Atlanta, Georgia, France, and all these fantastic places.
Like, Christina Tom Peters, that's from New York, and a person joining from New York.
Oh my, I wish I was in some of these places right now.
We're going to take the show on the road later on.
We got plans. Yes, we got plans. As we get the things, we're gonna take the show on the road.
This person's right here joining on from Festival City and so forth. Guys, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for waking up. And I hope that everyone that I keep saying, once you're on your way to work, you're watching us via smartphone, you're in your car, be safe, be safe, be safe.
Correct is right. Correct is right.
We can't say enough.
Yep. And Twitter, it is so important, guys. It is so important that we start the day the right way. How do you guys start the day the right way? I mean, for some people, it's devotion. Some people play some religious music, whether it's a bhajan, it's a gospel, just to set the tone for the day. Some people read a scripture, they read their holy book, the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, they read the Quran, to get a good start on the day. How do you guys start the day? That's very important,
I keep saying
very important.
It's important to start the day positive, and I don't like negative energies generally in the morning or I think if someone gives me negative energy early in the morning, oh my God, that just ruins the morning for me, and that could just translate to the rest of the day. I just want to get up and say good morning and be all happy and smiles and keep the day going like that. Very optimistic. We don't want a pessimistic behavior early in the morning.
Start the day sprightly. I don't like people who like you start the day, but they don't have that like a self-awareness. They don't know what's happening. They kind of just wondering about when I start the day, I know exactly what I want to do. I'm going.
Yes, I'm a morning person, so I'm up and about. This morning I was up and about since 3 a.m. And so, well, that's different because I was in my bed pretty early. So I got up like 3 a.m. and I was going through the news and making sure that I have everything in check. And then there's all that's going on the international stage. Well, so you don't have to imagine at 6 o'clock I was up 3 hours prior. So I am up and about.
Yeah, and part two of starting the day right. Is it Rishi Ramdial? Am I calling it right? Or I'm saying too far? Elizabeth Gaskin. Part of starting the day right too is, I think the early hours where lots of folks aren't moving around, you get so much more done, like you're more productive. And especially when you plan your day too, you get so much more done. Yes. Being productive.
Plan. No matter what, plan. There's never a bad plan. Just have a plan in place.
And you get so much more done. And I think it sets up your day for some early wins when you plan and you execute, as against you wondering, what am I going to do at 10? What am I going to do at 11? And you're just waiting for circumstances to happen, as against making things happen. And that is why we started the year, and across our programs that we hosted, we have the theme pace and power.
Yes.
Because we are going after certain things. We're going after certain goals. We want a certain quality to our program, guys. And here's where we say, bear with us. We are tightening the audio, tightening the visuals, ensuring we have enough lighting. We want you to see, our beautiful co-hosts, them clearly, Drita and Amanza. We want you to hear us very clearly as well, and working overtime to ensure that we got credible and valid information for you guys, the guys at the back end, working hard and working overtime as well. Just for you guys.
Lativia Lois is saying she read a scripture, then write the to-do list, and then wait on us to start.
Very nice, Lativia. We're very happy that we were on that list. Very, very happy,
I was told that someone saw me online around 4 o'clock this morning, and they called me. At that hour, there's no rest for us, guys, no rest at all. And they called me. They were saying, pretty soon you guys gonna have to invest in some institute for these FYI and below the belt and in the ring junkies, because it's beginning. It's
we know yeah. We're gonna organize some intervention. That's why on holidays. Sometimes we're but yesterday we decided, especially for the night program, we were going to take some rest. We wanted to be with our families too, as you guys would have also.
We'll be breaking up homes.
We can't break up homes every night. So we took a break there, and so that we can recalibrate some of our systems at our end too, and get some more things in place that helps us to have a more productive program. And we were talking the other morning when we had blackout and we came on very late, how difficult it is to try to produce a program of a certain quality here, because there are so many services that you depend on that don't always run on time, right? There's so many services, like even if you have a backup generator, it takes a while to kick over.
Yes.
Right?
I don't want to talk about noise and all of that.
And noise, and there's all of those things. And we're trying as best as possible to have a very, very comprehensive program where news and information is concerned, news, information, entertainment, and also we want a quality program with the audio, what you hear, what you see, the visuals, and all of that. But there's a challenge sometimes in syncing all of those things because you're depending on other services to kick in and to make all of those things work.
What Sheridan is saying basically is that we're operating on minimum equipment to give you maximum service actually. So we just make sure that we maximize the resources that we have actually to make sure that you guys are given quality programming on a daily basis.
Yeah, but we're so happy that you guys are here with us. Who do we have, Jurita? I see Myrtle Noble. Myrtle, how are you doing? Magnum is one of our favorites, one of our favorite people who help us out in a lot of ways. Gladstone is always here, very supportive. And guys, let me make a plug before we get on the way with the morning trend, that we are so appreciative of all of you who reach out to us, whether you share the program, you smash that emoji button for us, even now, that's very helpful as well to help other folks get information. But those of you who partner with us, that's a major aspect of our program because we always say it takes something to get all of this done for you. Yes. And those of you who do that, who partner with us, help us in that very, very tangible way to help other folks get the credible information as well, because you help us to retain a staff, you help us to keep the lights on, to keep the internet going, to pay for all the other services that combine to produce these kinds of programs. And so I want to say heartfelt thanks. We don't get a chance to say it enough to each and every one of you who partner with us in a tangible way. And we invite even you guys who are here now to do so as well. We're going to tell you a little later on, but I can make it a plug now. If you want to know how you can partner in a tangible way, just WhatsApp 627-6963, 627-6963, and we'll be certain to tell you how. WhatsApp that number.
One of the another important aspect of the partnership is actually to have the information that is shared from you guys to us. A lot of times, persons' information come from very unknown quarters, unexpected quarters, I must say. So we're very thankful for persons that actually reach out, especially persons that are working in the public sector and all of those places that we have been talking about. So continue to send us the information as you continue to partner with us.
Yeah, and I'm just letting you guys know, we're just letting you guys know that this is not the final product. We're still tweaking this program, still getting it just right for you, adding different elements in it. We're not quite there yet. And, interestingly enough, what people come to know as our affiliate in the Ring program didn't start that way.
No.
But it's constantly tweaking it. And we're not even at the final place yet. Even with that, it's still a show that is evolving. But that being said, a woman called me over the weekend, and she said that she's home. She want to help us in some way to keep the programs moving forward. She's home for a little while. She lives in New York. And she was introduced to the program about a month ago, and she says every night I have to watch. I was so excited about that and sharing it with the team that we still have folks who are endeared to our program for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't think it's me. I think it's a combination of things. It's a madness. As a matter of fact, she said that, folks. Lily said, "Sharon, you're crazy, but good crazy." I felt so enamored. Good to have each and every one of you. Good to have you, Jennifer, Bob. I see Gladstone Matthews, one of our favorites, here as well. Maureen Chichester Paul. Diane Graves. Diane, how you doing? Thanks for the thing, right? Good. Folks, a feature about Berbice. When I visit my in-laws in Berbice, is how people shout across the road to the neighbor and so on, and they talk loud and so on. That always strikes me. You don't see. I don't see that a lot in town, right? The people just look out and people just passing, strangers say, "Hi, morning." You don't have to know anybody, but there's this culture as you go further out of our national capital city. The other thing that I find very strange for the people who are from Berbice. So let's say I'm living in Kitty. You would never identify Jurita from Kitty, but Berbicians identify people by villages. So it's Cheryl from 28. It's it's Dave from 42.
There's no mix-up.
And people just know instinctively. You would never say Cheryl Duncan from South Rumpel, but people who live in Berbice. I don't know if other regions in the country they do the same thing. but I find that as a very unique feature. It's always a name and a village number.
So how would for you is going to be Gerard from Bartik and Shared from Lynette.
Or Gerard from 4th Street. The specific. I find that as a unique feature of Barbicians. Again, I don't know if people in other regions of the country, Aishalton and K2 and so on, might have the same kind of thing.
No, it's a Barbies thing.
It's a Barbies thing. Shout out to our Barbicians and the in-laws from Yeovil. Good to have all the other folks joining us. We see some other name. Esteline, we see you. Seymour Williams. Andrew Cuthbert, always here. Andrew always present.
I like Andrew.
Always present.
Andrew's a dedicated listener, and Andrew's always here to make sure that he gets the credible information. So, hats off to Andrew.
Awesome. Well, the guys are going to let us know if they're ready to go with the morning trend. But lots of stuff happening internationally, as Sharita said, especially where Ukraine is concerned.
Oh, most definitely. We have the breaking news that we woke up to this morning. Persons that were since 3 a.m. Like I said, is that Russia has sent troops into Ukraine and in what is being described as an act of war. You know, Russia's President Putin is not describing it as such, but military action he has in that part. But it has been described even at the UN by the representative from the U.S. that the U.S. Security Council spoke, and they are defining it as an act of war. So that situation that we've been covering, we have been talking about it a little throughout the week. I think even from last week we started mentioning, we've been following that situation. But this morning we woke up to the fact that Russia has indeed bombed some parts of Ukraine, taking out some I think some part of their military is completely
immobilized
right now.
Yep.
I think that's their aim altogether. And there you have it, guys. Russia invaded Ukraine. Okay, and shared as we've been following, we have a lot more of the information to come, especially when it comes to the videos that have been coming out from, this morning from the meeting of the UN Security Council. So guys, if you can actually bear with us as we bring in some of those footage. If we can bring in actually some of those footage, the guys are working in the background to get that done. So as we continue to bring you this breaking news, Russia has invaded Ukraine in what is being described as an act of war. And we are going to be bringing in the footage, the very first footage there for you guys. Just have a listen, please.
This is the saddest moment in my tenure as Secretary General of the United Nations. I started this meeting of the Security Council addressing President Putin and telling him from the bottom of my heart, stop your troops from an offensive to Ukraine, give peace a chance, because too many people have already died. During the meeting, President Putin announced a special military operation in the Donbass and required the Ukrainian troops to lay down their arms. So in the present circumstances, I must change my appeal. And I must say, President Putin, in the name of humanity, bring your troops back to Russia. In the name of humanity, do not allow to start in Europe what could be the worst war since the beginning of the century, with consequences not only devastating for Ukraine, not only tragic for the Russian Federation, but with an impact we cannot even foresee in relation to their consequences for the global economy in a moment when we are emerging from the COVID, and so many developing countries absolutely need to have space for the recovery, which would be very, very difficult with high prices of oil, with the end of exports of wheat from the Ukraine, and with rising interest rates caused by the instability in international markets. This conflict must stop now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary General. You've just talked about consequences. I wonder if you could spell out some more what you think the consequences will be for Russia and for Ukraine and its people.
Well, it's clear that military action will be happening in the territory of the Ukraine. And obviously, if they lead to a generalized war, it is difficult to forecast how dramatic it will be in the number of people who will die, in the number of people who will be displaced, in the number of people who will lose hope in relation to the future. It is also clear that the consequences for the Russian Federation will be very meaningful. It's not for me to comment on sanctions that are being implemented, but it's clear that there will be also consequences. But what is clear for me is that this war doesn't make any sense. It violates the principles of the Charter, and it causes, or will cause, if it doesn't stop, a level of suffering Europe has not known since at least the volcanic crisis.
There you had it, guys. That was none other than the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres making his statement on what is going on there between Russia and Ukraine, and we can hear the compassion in his voice.
Very important events, very critical events.
As he's asking for peace, because lives has been lost, as he said there, and none of us can actually estimate the damage that can be done in the future, and the ripple effect that it has not only to Russia and Ukraine, but to the world over.
The challenge is always the people. It is always the people who suffer. I mean, where leaders are insulated, in far-flung areas of those countries, you've got security and all of that. It is the people who live in these areas that are being shelled, that are being bombed, who are going to pay the highest price. And, you hear the Secretary General talk about untold suffering like you've never seen before could be a consequence of these actions.
It's very sad. We have been monitoring this, and the world needs to pay attention to what is going on. Guyana needs to pay very keen attention to what is going on there right now. We have right at our border, we have the Venezuela, the matter, the issue with Venezuela that we've been dealing with for so long. We need to be looking now. We need to be concerned, because when these things happen, they have a wide range of ripple effect, and we need to be monitoring. But Shard, I know that there was actually a timeline of actual
condemnations, basically. Yeah, but on the border issue, I think it brings into sharp focus that countries that have border disputes, and not only border disputes, these kinds of contentions like we see happening with Russia and Ukraine, how these situations can erupt at any given moment, and they have real world consequences.
In the dead of night.
Real world consequences. But as Judy said, a number of leaders worldwide have been issuing very strong condemnations against what is happening here in Ukraine. And we want to walk you through a couple of them, beginning with the U.S. President Joe Biden, again, just last evening, having some very, very strong comments. And if you visit his Facebook page, you'll see the last 10 posts on his Facebook page alone have been aimed at Russia and what they're doing. And we advise that U.S. President Joe Biden condemned Russia's actions as being unprovoked and an unqualified attack against Ukraine. He added that he will meet with the G7 leaders today and work to impose severe sanctions. And it's interesting to note that there are already sanctions that have been issued against Russia, not only by the U.S., but also by Britain.
Correct.
So quite important to
before the U.S. actually.
Exactly. So it's quite important to know that additional sanctions are coming. And then we see the European Union. Thank you, guys. The European Union as well in that timeline. The European Union said in a statement that again, saying that Russia's actions here are unqualified military actions and grossly violating international law and undermining stability in Europe. And this was some information we picked up from Forbes publication. And then the British Prime Minister, as we spoke of, who had already instituted sanctions, he said on Twitter that he was appalled by the horrific events that are taking place in Ukraine. And then you have the Russian Chancellor also weighing in and saying that this is a blatant breach of international law and demanded that Russia must stop its military actions. I mean, if any country that understands this foolishness, it is Germany, because Hitler, we know, came from this region of the world, and all that history we have to learn from. And it seems as though we have learned nothing. And then we have the French President Emmanuel Macron also weighing in on these issues, saying that there should be an immediate end to its Russia rather should bring an immediate end to its military operations in Ukraine, and he strongly condemned the Russian decision to wage war. And then we have the Japanese Prime Minister also weighing in on this. Again, these countries know historically that what the wages of war is on a people. The Japanese understand that acutely, and so the Japanese president has been weighing in on that. Thanks, guys. And then we have also China's ambassador. Well, China is perhaps the exception to the rule in terms of a full-out condemnation. Julia.
Well, actually, China. What did China actually say in that particular statement?
Well, here
you have an extract from.
Here's what China says. The ambassador from China says he urged that the persons involved in the crisis, he urged them to stay cool-headed and rational. But Beijing stopped short of outright condemning Russia's actions so far.
Wow.
Very interesting events playing out on the world stage.
That is indeed very interesting, because I believe I have a clip. I believe the second clip that I want to bring you guys is actually from the representative from China at the UN Security Council meeting that was had this morning. Mind you, this was a second emergency
I'm happy
meeting.
We have some footage.
This is a second emergency meeting that was held on the Russia-Ukraine situation, and it was in the middle of that meeting when those persons sat down to meet and to reach amicable solutions that would not bring harm to human lives, that the action was put out, and those actions started by the president of Russia. So if we can bring in that footage of what was said by China, it would be very interesting to see how China is wording their statements.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the situation in Ukraine is at a critical juncture. China has been paying close attention to the situation. In the current context, all parties concerned should exercise restraint and avoid the further escalation of tensions. We believe that the door to a peaceful solution to the Ukraine issue is not fully shut, nor should it be. China has pointed out on many occasions that there is a complex historical context on the Ukraine issue, and that the current situation is the result of the interplay of many factors. China's position on safeguarding the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all states has been consistent. The purposes and principles of the UN Charter should be jointly upheld. We hope that all parties concerned will stay cool-headed and rational and commit themselves to enhance dialogue and consultation to resolve relevant issues properly through negotiations and address each other's legitimate security concerns in line with the principles of the UN Charter. It is especially important at the moment to avoid fueling tensions. China will continue to promote peace talks in its own ways and welcomes and encourages all efforts aimed at a diplomatic solution.
There you have it. The Chinese ambassador at the UN Security Council meeting this morning, which was the second emergency meeting held of the UN Security Council to address the issue between Russia and Ukraine. And again, China, they're wording their statement very carefully, very calculated wording, and just stopping short of an outright condemnation of what of the situation there between Russia and Ukraine. So we're looking at the statements. I shared as crazy as this. When I look at what is going on in the world, and it brings me back to what is going on locally here in Guyana and the level of representation that we are met with. So I pray that we are never in a situation that our current leaders have to sit at the world stage and speak on our behalf, because based on what we've been seeing, they do not have that ability.
Yep. It's a challenging time ahead, and no facade of leadership will do. You're either a leader or you aren't. And when these situations try you, and again I say, we have our own border contentions that could flare up at any time. The price of oil in Russia affects the price of oil on the world market, the demand for oil and all of that. So all involved, really and truly, and all are consumed. The Russia has its own interests in Venezuela, our neighbors, who we got border issues with, and all of that. And so it's a dark time, my love, to quote our national poet, Martin Carter.
Most definitely. And as we go further, first of all, I have to say thank you to Al Jazeera for the footage that we are bringing to you. Credit to Al Jazeera for that bit of footage. And as we move forward, a lot of people out there that is now getting in sync with what is going on actually hasn't heard what Russia is saying about the reasoning that they're given to justify the invasion and that act of war into Ukraine. And for that, I want to bring you guys some footage from what the Russian ambassador at the UN Security Council. Interestingly to note that the Russian ambassador at the UN Security Council, he is actually the president of the UN Security Council, because that rotating chairmanship or presidency for the UN Security Council is right now held by Russia.
So it isn't coincidental that the invasion is happening when Russia has the chairmanship of the Security Council.
So
interesting.
We're going to bring you guys a bit of footage from what he had to say this morning at the second emergency meeting of the UN Security Council.
Colleagues, today we've had an intensive day from the point of view of discussions of the Ukrainian crisis. I won't repeat what I said this morning at the General Assembly. I can only state with regret that, taking stock of the day, our signals to Kiev about the need to stop provocations against Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republics were not heeded. It would appear that our Ukrainian colleagues, who recently have been actively armed and egged on by a host of states, are still harbouring the illusion that, with the benediction of their Western sponsors, they will be able to achieve a military solution to the problem in the Donbass. Otherwise, it is difficult to explain the substantial intensification of shelling and acts of diversion on the territory of these republics. The Special Monitoring Mission of the OSCE recorded today almost 2,000 cases of violations of the ceasefire regime. including almost 1,500 explosions. Those living in Donetsk and Lugansk still sheltering in basements. The refugees are still flowing into Russia. In a word, the nature of the provocation by the Ukrainian military has not changed. You don't want to notice this, repeating the Ukrainian fairy tales that those living in Donetsk are all but shelling themselves. It is no surprise that the increasing suffering of those living in the Donbass does not seem to affect our Western colleagues. Through the whole day of debate today at the General Assembly, you haven't been able to find one word of compassion or condolences. It is as if these 4 million people for you simply don't exist. I would like to recall that the principle of sovereignty and territorial equality of states, and territorial integrity of states, in violation of which we are being accused of violating in Ukraine today, according to the Declaration on the Principles of International Law pertaining to friendly relations between peoples, adopted in 1970, they should be fully complied with as regards states who, and I quote, conduct themselves in compliance with the principle of equal rights and self-determination of peoples, and thus possessed of a government representing the whole people without distinction of race, creed, or colour, the whole people living in that territory. End of quote. Today's government in Ukraine simply is not that. And the tragedy in Ukraine started indeed after the illegal coup in Maidan in 2014, when, rather than dialogue with the Russian-speaking citizens of Ukraine, the new authorities brandished guns and airplanes at them. Information and testimony to this end is more than sufficient. However, our Western colleagues prefer not to notice this. We tried yesterday and today, to explain to you the logic of the decision made by Russia to recognize the LPR and DPR. And we focused on the need to ensure peace and security there. However, you didn't want to hear this, and you don't want to hear it now. For you, those living in the Donbass are simply pawns in a geopolitical game focused on weakening Russia and promoting the bloc from NATO to its borders. For us, these people are women, children, the elderly, who for 8 years have been cowering from Ukraine's shelling and provocations. For us, these are Ukraine people and not the Maidan authorities. This is the difference in our approaches. If you do not change the geopolitical lens, you will never understand us. Then, those on whose behalf this decision I mentioned was made, who not even thought about for over these 8 years, simply calling them pro-Russian separatists and terrorists. Those people are the most important for us. I'd like to say once again that the root of today's crisis around Ukraine is the actions of Ukraine itself, who for many years of sabotaging its obligations under the Minsk package of measures. Last week, even, there was a hope that Kiev would rethink and nevertheless implement what it signed up to do in 2015. For this, first and foremost, they needed direct dialogue with Donetsk and Lugansk. However, further confirmation that Ukraine is not ready for this type of dialogue and steps to grant Donbass special status as set forth in the Minsk agreements, while with the support of this position from Western backers, finally convinced us that we simply cannot force those living in the Donbass to suffer more. And as much as I already said, the Ukrainian provocation against those in Donbass not only has not stopped, but has intensified. The leaders of the LPR and the DPR turned to us with a request to provide military support in line with bilateral cooperation agreements as agreed at the same time as they were recognition. This is a logical step, which is a consequence of the actions of the Ukrainian regime. During this meeting, the President of Russia, Putin, spoke and said that he made a decision for a special military operation in the Donbass. We don't know all the details today, but briefly I would like to inform you that from his statement it says that the occupation of Ukraine is not in our plans. The aim of this special operation is to protect the people who for over 8 years have been suffering genocide from the Kiev regime. And for this we will aim to demilitarize and de-genocide Ukraine, and also support those and hold accountable those who carried out so many crimes against civilians, including citizens of the Russian Federation. This decision was made in line with Article 51 of the UN Charter and the sanction of the Russian Federation and fulfilling the agreement on recognition of the LPR and DPR. We're receiving a lot of information and we will analyse this and we will keep you up to speed with this. Now I resume my function as President of the Council.
And there you have it. There you have it. None other than the chairman of the UN Security Council giving his remarks this morning at that second emergency meeting. And also that chairman is none other than the Russian ambassador. So he is reporting as a chairman on what is going on in Russia and trying to justify the actions of Russia to invade Ukraine and what is being said as an act of war. All right, so there's so much going on right about now on the world stage, and we must be bringing you this bit of information.
And in addition to that, we as a new oil-producing nation and as a powerhouse now internationally, we have to have a position on these issues. We cannot just bury our heads in the sand like the ostrich and expect, they're gonna just blow over. We've walked you guys through who've been with us. Several condemnations on the international stage. The US President, the European Union, the British Prime Minister, the Chancellor of Germany, the President of France, and the Prime Minister of Japan have all come out in very, very strong condemnation. And we too have to have a position. We cannot just, think if we ignore the problem, it is going to go away. And while we can, spend hours talking about what critics say and what naysayers say about our regime, we have to have positions on these very weighty issues. These are critical issues happening on the international level, and human lives are at stake, and we have to have a stance on them as well.
Leadership, effective leadership, good government and good governance altogether would have actually done that. We spoke Tuesday morning, for those of you that joined us on Tuesday morning, we were asking what is Guyana's position, because we are yet to hear from our foreign affairs minister on the matter, but he's probably feeling a bit muzzled because the last decision that came out, I think the vice president went to say that he acted without cabinet approval. So that is another situation that's here. So when there's an act of war in Europe, what is going on here in Guyana? The headlines it's about naysayers and these things, an oil-rich country. And these are the things that we need to be weighing in on. This is the seriousness of what is going on. When we speak about lack of leadership and effective leadership, it's these situations that comes to your mind, that how do we deal with that if we don't have leadership that can actually go and speak on the behalf of the Guyanese people. We often say, Chad, when it comes to matters of territory and boundary, those are things that has no political line. We should be united on these matters. Persons should be meeting. Opposition should be put
especially as a global village as well. I think parents and families, as part of that global village, we have a right to weigh in on these issues ourselves and talk to our children about what's happening in the world. Everything is not fat and winding up and drinking rum. Important things are happening in the world, and we have a responsibility to get information. You have the responsibility to share it. Explain to your kids, your kids are going to be perhaps going to UG, doing a first degree, going on to higher education somewhere in the world. It could be Russia. It could be Ukraine, some international university. We got a lot of scholarships now being given out a lot of places. It could be in some of these very countries, right? And so we have to make sense of the world in which we're operating. If you do business, sometimes on an international scale. Some of the companies you do business with, you might even know, might be based in some of these very places. And so you can be affected one way or the next. And again, I find myself coming back to our national poet, Martin Carter, who says in that epic poem of his, all are involved and all are consumed. This is a global village, believe it or not. That is why when that virus hit in one of the provinces in China there, one woman came here in March 15, and look how many persons have been affected. That is, if you didn't believe we were a global village before.
That's globalization for you.
That is globalization. One woman traveling from the US here brought the coronavirus, and the end result is billions of dollars being spent now to try to contain it. That's the global village we're talking about. It affects us, so we cannot bury our heads in the sand and pretend COVID don't exist and to pretend it is going away when we know it's not going away. And we can talk a little bit more about that too before we get to the end of the program.
Most definitely.
But I think we have some more in Russia, Judy.
We do have some more in Russia, and we put together these footage very uniquely so that persons could have a clear understanding of what is going on. And the next footage I want to be showing to you guys is the actual ambassador for Ukraine and the comments that he made this morning at the emergency meeting of the UN Security Council. So guys, just bringing that footage so persons can get his response. Well, his statement rather, not a response.
So when I was coming here an hour ago or so, I was intending to ask the Russian ambassador to confirm on the record that the Russian troops will not start firing at Ukrainians today and go ahead with the offensive. It became useless 48 minutes ago. Because about 48 minutes ago, your president declared the war on Ukraine. So now I would like to ask the ambassador of the Russian Federation to say on the record that at this very moment, your troops do not shell and bomb Ukrainian cities, that your troops do not move in the territory of Ukraine. You have a smartphone, you can call Lavrov right now. We can make a pause to let you go out and call him. If you are not in a position to give an affirmative answer, the Russian Federation ought to relinquish responsibilities of the President of the Security Council, pass these responsibilities on to a legitimate member of the Security Council, a member that is respectful of the Charter, and I ask the members of the Security Council to convene an emergency meeting immediately and consider all necessary draft decisions to stop the war. Because it's too late, my dear colleagues, to speak about de-escalation. Too late. The Russian president declared the war on the record. Should I play the video of your president? Ambassador, shall I do that right now, or you can confirm it? Do not interrupt me, please. Thank you.
Then don't ask me questions when you are speaking. Proceed with your statement.
Anyway, you declared the war. It is the responsibility of this body to stop the war. So I call on every one of you to do everything possible to stop the war. Or should I play the video with your president declaring the war? Thank you very much.
That was the ambassador from Ukraine. Very, very strong statements being made there from the ambassador of Ukraine at the emergency meeting of the UN Security Council. And in wrapping up his comments, this is what he had to say further in wrapping up those comments. If the guys could just bring that in.
Well, as I said, relinquish your duties as a chair. Call Putin, call Lavrov to stop aggression. And I welcome the decision of some members of this council to meet as soon as possible to consider the necessary decision that would condemn the aggression that you launch on my people. There is no purgatory for war criminals. They go straight to hell, Ambassador.
Я бы хотел сказать в
I
заключение,
wanted to say in conclusion that we
производим агрессию против
aren't
украинского народа.
being aggressive against the Ukrainian people, but against the junta that is in power in Kiev. There are no more speakers on the list. This meeting is adjourned.
Wow, very, very strong statements, like I said, coming there from the ambassador of Ukraine at the UN Security Council meeting. And I keep saying that was a second meeting because the UN Security Council was trying their best to de-escalate the situation altogether. But when that meeting was called this morning, in the wee hours in the morning, when that meeting was called, the Russian president simultaneously was sending troops into Ukraine and also bombing their air force.
It just goes to show that when we're sleeping, when you guys are sleeping, there are events happening around the world that shapes your life, because what happens there affects the price of oil. And what affects the price of oil is going to affect us. It's going to affect you as well.
And as I come off of this morning's program, I'll go straight to checking the actual price of oil and what is going on right now, because those things have direct impact.
As a matter of fact, the guys were just telling us that oil has gone up to $100 a barrel now.
Well, all of that being said, but the last bit of footage I want to be bringing you guys, the last bit of footage is actually on the what the U.S. ambassador had to say at the UN Security Council meeting this morning. That bit of footage, if the guys can just bring that to you as we wrap up our discussion on what is transpiring there between Russia and Ukraine.
Interesting events.
Thank you. In my remarks tonight, I said that we predicted Russia's false flag attacks, the misinformation.
There's no audio?
The theatrical emergency meetings and the cyber attacks. But one piece had not come to pass. Unfortunately, while we've been meeting in the Security Council tonight, it appears that President Putin has ordered that last step. At the exact time as we are gathered in the council seeking peace, Putin delivered a message of war in total disdain for the responsibility of this council. This is a grave emergency. The council will need to act, and we will put a resolution on the table tomorrow. As President Biden said tonight, Russia alone is responsible for the death and destruction this attack will bring. And the United States and our allies and partners will respond in a united and decisive way. The world will hold Russia accountable. Thank you.
Я благодарю.
Very, very strong words, guys. Welcome back. Very, very strong words by the American ambassador to the UN. And the American president, as we said during the program, has been making lots of statements through social media on this issue. And this is one of those posts that he made just a few hours ago concerning the invasion of the Ukraine by Russia. Here's the American president on Facebook stating very, very clearly what the American position is. This is President Joe Biden, and Facebook said that President Zelensky reached out to me tonight, and we just finished speaking. I condemn this unprovoked and unjustified attack by the Russian military forces. I briefed him on the steps we're taking to rally in international condemnation, including tonight at the United Nations Security Council. He asked me to call on the leaders of the world to speak out clearly against President Putin's flagrant aggression, and to stand by the people of Ukraine. And he goes on to say some of the sanctions that are going to be coming. Hillary Clinton as well, who is the former Secretary of State of the United Nations, had some comments of her own, referring to, I believe, Madeleine Albright's comments on social media. Hillary Clinton had some comments of her own. Thank you, guys. And here is what Hillary Clinton said. She says that Madeleine Albright, who again was also is also a former U.S. Secretary of State, said that instead of paving Russia's path to greatness, invading Ukraine would ensure Mr. Putin's infamy by leaving his country diplomatically isolated, economically crippled, and strategically vulnerable. Again, this is Hillary Clinton, the former Secretary of State of the United States of America, quoting another former Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright. And those were some very, very, very strong comments.
Economically crippled. You know,
Yep.
that one is going to touch a nerve on a lot of persons, because what we've been seeing, and Joe Biden has been making it clear that he's not going to be sending troops into Ukraine in that manner. But what Joe Biden is doing is he is instituting sanctions and severe sanctions on Russia. And those sanctions are basically aimed at crippling the economic activity of Russia altogether, because he's been sanctioning areas like the banks and the way in which money transactions are done. And when we're living, we talk about technology in this globalized world, everything is interconnected. So those are severe sanction methods being put. Basically, it's going to cripple the economic structure of Russia altogether. That is the aim of those sanctions. So whilst there are troops from Russia in Ukraine, whilst that is going on, there's a different level of fighting and warfare going on with the economic aspect of things between the U.S. and Russia, as the U.S. continue to impose severe sanctions on Russia.
A lot of information to go through, guys, but we trust that as you join the program, you're having your breakfast. These are some of the things that you're going to be contemplating this morning. Locally and closer to home, guys, too many accidents. Too many accidents, guys, however you frame it. Too many accidents in our roads. And we said this to you guys on our last program, that we understand it's a holiday period as we rest after hard work, but not eternal rest. And because of how some persons have been using the roadways, that is some of what we have been seeing. And again, we were cautioning folks to take it easy on the road, and we are sad to report that just this morning, over the last 24 hours, we had some accidents. There was one at the Kendron quite recently, where a car crashed into a fence. The driver said he was swerving from a horse, collided with a fence there at the Kendron in Bubis, and this was the result. Again, he has a lot of expenses now. Thankfully, he walked away with his life. That could have ended, very, very badly. Could have ended very, very badly. And folks, as you guys come on, we encourage you guys to share the live stream. We encourage you guys to smash that emoji button. Let other folks get the valid and incredible information, because we need to slow down on the roads. And this is a result of some of that. We have another accident too over the last 24 hours as well. This one at Skonard. Unfortunately, this one ended much differently. And in this instance, we're learning that an unlicensed driver was involved in a 3-vehicle smash up at Skonard. And again, guys, we say slow down. Take every precaution, especially now we have a little bit of rain. I think the forecast is telling us even during the day today we're going to be having some rain. So we're following the details from these accidents at the Kendron and Skonard, and saying to you folks, slow down, drive carefully. We've been at pains on this program to say that. We're losing too many people. I think avoidable deaths. Some of these road accidents. People just need to slow down. You stop on the road to allow somebody to pass. You put on your hazard light. You're waving your hand out the vehicle. People still trying to beat on the inside. Still trying to beat on the outside. What's the matter with us in this country of ours? What is the matter with us, especially on the road? We don't give way to pedestrians. We don't give way to cyclists. We don't give way to motorcyclists. We believe that we care, we first. But it's actually the pedestrian in the apex of road users are high up on that chain. The pedestrians come first. Then you got the cyclists, the motorcyclists, right? Then you got the cars, the vans, and so forth. We got to slow down. We got to exercise every caution. especially that is raining.
That is a whole system of re-educating people, drivers that needs to come into play for them to understand.
Correct.
Hierarchy, and this is how it should be.
When you're doing the driving theory, they tell you about wet roads and braking distance and all of that, but some of these guys behaving as though got in the vehicle with them and things will be all right. How they're speeding through. And so again, folks, picking up that bit of information from Schoonard and from the Kendron, those accidents and the one fatality at Schoonard.
Wow. Well, we've actually said a whole lot in prior shows that about the accidents and road accidents altogether. But you know, Sharon, even in the local news this morning, I've been picking up some news even coming from Haiti. When it comes to protests in Haiti, I don't know if the guys have that up, but I read in the papers this morning that there was a protest in Haiti in which police opened fire, injuring persons, and one journalist actually was killed. Haiti police opened fire on demonstrators, and those demonstrators were actually out there protesting for higher wages, and they were met with fire from the police, open fire.
Haiti is one of those countries we gotta not only pray for them like we're praying for the folks in Ukraine and Russia too, because you know on both sides there can be casualties, but we gotta pray for Haiti, those of you who people of faith, and more than that, we gotta stop talking the talk. But as a region, Haiti is a member of CARICOM, but what is CARICOM doing for Haiti really and truly? What are we doing to intervene in what's happening in Haiti and help them to come back on a fuller democratic path there in Haiti? Lots of work still needed, no doubt, in Haiti, and we're going to continue to follow that all of that information.
Well, as I looked at the screen, I know that our time with you guys have actually come to an end, but we encourage persons to continue to stay with us. We have Diane Graves-Zandy.
Yeah, Diane is here, and Ivor Harry. I see, is it Lorleen? I see Seymour Williams, Andrew Cuthbert, and all the other folks. Sorry, good to see you guys. And again, coming closer to home, Drita, we have a motion that was filed by Catherine Hughes and Member of Parliament Nima Fru-Bess. Member of Parliament Catherine Hughes and Nima Fru-Bess have submitted a motion against the conduct of Minister Nigel Damrad in the Assembly, the last sitting, with those remarks, well, not the last sitting, but in one of the previous sittings, with one of the remarks that, well, the remarks that were made, those very unsavory remarks that were made, one of which is the infamous one where he was responding to a female MP and saying that she needed a dildo, and that kind of lewd, crass behavior. And again, submitting a motion saying that this kind of behavior is not going to be tolerated at all. So that's one of the things we are following, and we're going to have some information on that. But you know, as we said, in line with the holiday festivities and all of that, and slowing down on the roads, the authorities have lifted the COVID-19 curfew. But with that, inadvertently, it seems as though all of the regulations, restrictions, and protocols have also been lifted, because how we see people operating is not really and truly in keeping with being responsible at all.
But we sounded that alarm at the very beginning. Immediately after that announcement came forward saying that the curfew was lifted, I made a point that the curfew is not a standalone policy. It's not a standalone regulation when it comes to the COVID-19 pandemic, and there are so many others that are coupled with that, especially when it comes to do not gather together in large numbers and those things, you know. But I made note of the fact that when that announcement was made about the curfew being lifted, they had a line at the bottom that says happy matrimony. So basically telling people to go out and party and sport and do whatever.
And people have been having a happy matrimony. As a matter of fact, party goers, guys, have been flocking events by the thousands. And you know, we've talked to some health officials, and they are very, very concerned about that. Party goers not only flocking by the thousands, but that's good. I love being outside, but people seem not to be exercising that kind of responsibility that comes with operating in a COVID environment, and trying really and truly to keep down the COVID surge that has been happening quite recently. Here's a look at one of those parties. I think this was one from the National Stadium quite recently. Well, folks, we like palancing just like the other guys. We tend to shake a leg or two every now and again, but again, we got to do so in a responsible manner. And clearly, I hope. Let me, as Kemraj Ramjan says, you got to presume regularity, and our presumption is that everybody there would have been checked by the gate with their COVID, for the COVID card, fully vaccinated, and so as the regulation says, and as they promised they would have.
Seems like we had a lot of people out there palancing for COVID.
Palancing?
Palancing for COVID. Palancing. You don't know how many persons were out there palancing with COVID. You don't know how many persons were out there palancing, spreading COVID. So
palancing.
That's the level of palancing that went on there in that party, because I often make the point that being vaccinated does not stop you from having COVID, having the virus, and it doesn't stop you from spreading the virus. So if you go in there with your vaccine card and everyone is fully vaccinated, but 10 persons tend to have COVID, at the end of that setting right there, everybody there have COVID.
Yep. But you know who not palancing? The folks at Gaisuko, and especially the folks at Enmore, because again, we're seeing this whole thing kind of now coming, the details emerging with that selling out of the Enmore packaging factory there belonging to Gaisuko. And I think the media said this morning there would be a meeting between GAU, this is the Guyana Agricultural Workers Union, meeting with Gaisuko concerning the packaging plant, because as we've been telling you guys here, GAU said they were blindsided publicly by the announcement. They were not consulted. But this seems more form than substance to me. This seems nothing is going to change here. This seems more form than substance.
This is after the fact. Let's be quite frank. This is after the fact. This meeting is to say what? This meeting is probably to inform the head of GAU of what as to what will be done, as to what is being done rather. Now this is just to officially give the head of GAU the information, and it doesn't matter that he sits in the government benches as a member of parliament. He doesn't know what's going on because the government doesn't. Apparently, they don't distribute the information to the government MPs. So,
yep.
As ridiculous as it sounds, that's what it is.
So, on that front, folks, it seems as though that is more form than substance, this meeting with GAU and Gaisuko, because nothing's going to go back. As a matter of fact, there are other reports that says it is the government that approached the investor on taking control of the sugar packaging plant there. And the investor is saying that, they provided huge sums that nobody else would take on to do this project here for the oil and gas industry with this piping factory or piping service that's going to be coming out of the once packaging plant that they told us just last month was doing well and was going to be part of the revitalization of the sugar industry. Well, we see how that is going. But on another front, we had the flag raising ceremony quite recently. FYI delivered his address to the nation, but lots of people are saying that this was just this wasn't addressed to the nation. This was the head of the country railing against his critics and naysayers. Is not an uplifting address. It wasn't enlightening in any way. It wasn't inspiring. It was
52 years.
It was a diatribe against critics and naysayers. And Putin feels the same way about folks in this country too. He don't like critics. He don't like naysayers at all.
But what does that say to us when we can compare our leaders to such leaders?
Yep. There's lots happening on the world stage. Ukraine didn't start yesterday, but we didn't hear any of that coming out of this national address. We heard about the critics and lots of other folks have been picking up on this. You read Starbuck News, read Demerara Waves, read Kaitro News. Everybody picked up on this. It was just This was a tribute to the naysayers and the quote-unquote naysayers and the quote-unquote critics. Another aspect of what transpired there at public buildings that, commentators and newspapers, news entities have been picking up on is the fact that the opposition was not invited. And we're talking about one guy. And we've been talking about that here, but sometimes you guys, well, not you guys, but sometimes these guys think that our outlook, our perspective is blurred because we are incidentally opposition parliamentarians as well. But here are other folks saying that, how we could be talking about one Guyana, right? But we're inviting the opposition to these national events. Listen, folks, hold up. Look at the US. You had that insurgency, right? President Trump basically asked US citizens to storm Capitol Hill. But Biden's still reaching out to those folks, still working with the Republicans, Democrats working with the Republicans to move the country forward. The default mode of the current regime in this country is trying to perpetuate this propaganda of rigging. Everything goes back to we all SOPs. The human rights body spoke out against the murder of a man, right? You heard the Attorney General asking when you all had elections. When last year had elections as a human rights body, right? Did you all speak out against people not showing the SOPs? No wonder we don't have any comments on Ukraine internationally.
And again, we shudder to think, we shudder to imagine what the situation will be like if we are ever found in any position that we require that level of diplomacy that is expected from true leaders who are leaders.
I'm certain
when they're representing their country.
I'm certain Todd will finally rise to the occasion. Right? Will finally rise to the occasion. I'm certain.
For our sake.
If and Ali will finally rise to the occasion. I'm certain. They won't go on those forums and talk about SOPs and critics and naysayers. I'm certain. They'll rise to the occasion.
Well,
finally.
Actually, what and I did read the reports coming out, and persons are lashing back at the fact that the stage was utilized to speak about naysayers. This was the first actually address. This was the first stage that Irfan Ali stood on after this the International Energy Conference and Expo. And the least the person would have expected is for him to be bringing the information as to what transpired there, the plans moving forward, and how Guyanese will benefit altogether. But instead, he was more concerned about people that speak up and provide constructive criticism to what is being done. I think it's a very constructive criticism for us to say, as we have been saying, that look, you promised to open back the sugar industry. You promised to go in this direction, but look, now you're saying that it's not going to go in that direction. You're going to take the packaging facility, you're going to have it used for something else. And it's a constructive criticism when we say it is surprising that the head for a guy who sits as a PPP parliamentarian and he is yet surprised and he learned of these actions from the newspaper. Those are all constructive criticism. So we just don't go out and just say, oh my gosh, we don't like these people. We were saying that this is what you're doing, and we critique it in a very constructive manner.
Yeah.
So when you go out and you lash back and say persons are not supposed to be doing that, it begs the question of whether or not you want to operate under the dictatorship format in which people are just muzzled and they cannot, and they're punished for speaking up against what goes on in their own country. So much is to be said by what was said there.
And we're going to keep you guys updated on all of this. We're going to be back with our podcast at 12. We're going back in the ring this evening at 8 as well, as we continue to bring you details and additional information. That's going to do it for our time this morning on FYI. It's been such a privilege being here with you for yet another show. Morning.
It's always a pleasure to be here in the morning, bringing you guys credible information. So.
As well, you guys, Laverne, and you guys, Samoa Williams, you guys, Donna David, you guys, Wilma Grant, and Laverne Harricharan, Kelvin Passat, Paulette Hicks, all of you guys. And sure, before you go, that you give us a share the program, smash that emoji button as well, and we're going to see you guys back here a little later on in the morning at 12 o'clock. That is for Below the Belt, our podcast, and then we're back at 8. Guys, there's several ways you can partner with us to help us keep this work going, keep giving you the credible and valid information. You can partner with us We are available via Cash App. The Cash App handle is the $ in the ring 592. The $ in the ring 592. We're available via PayPal and via Zelle as well. The email address is in the ring 592@gmail.com. In the ring 592@gmail.com. We're available via MMG2, believe it or not. 627-6963 is that number. 627-6967.
MoneyGram.
Western Union MoneyGram. We did it too. We did it too. You all need guidance at any of these platforms, WhatsApp us at 627-6963. We'd be happy to give you some guidance. That's our time here this morning. And Charita has the last word and the sign off.
See you guys in the morning. And of course, like Sher said, be sure to join Below the Belt at 12 noon and then back this evening at 8 p.m. for In the Ring. Have a good one, guys.